I'm going to do a couple of training modules on endorsing candidates as a county party, and then a closing module on election protection. Um, some of you, I recognize you've been around for a while, and you're chairing or working in parties that have a formal endorsement process for local candidates, or you may be in a county that has a prohibition in your bylaws from endorsing local candidates. At any rate, I'm going to go forward for those who are new. Endorsement means formally giving a candidate the support of your county party. And the endorsement process is how you go about granting that support and how candidates may ask for or apply for that support. As I mentioned, some counties have formal endorsement procedures, but most don't. Most actually don't. The larger counties tend to have a formal endorsement process, and some of the smaller ones may never have and may never will. The DPO does not have a specific policy on county party endorsements for local nonpartisan offices. Our policy on endorsement generally is if it's for a partisan office above the level of House representative, then our voters decide our candidates in the primary, and an endorsement from the county party for those candidates is redundant. However, we don't have primaries for school board races. We do for some city council races, but they're not partisan primaries. So it's up to the county parties to decide if they want to formally support candidates in those circumstances. And we do not, the DPO itself as a body does not endorse candidates for local office. Whether you create a formal endorsement process in your county is up to you. But whether you do or you don't, we do recommend that you make whatever your process is completely transparent and equitable for all the Democratic candidates for local office in your county. And what that means is, as transparent means that you have a written policy. And your written policy may be, we don't endorse formally. Or it may be, you are welcome to come to our monthly Central Committee meeting, present yourself to the body, and we will take a vote on whether or not to support you. Or it may be very detailed, where you have an endorsement committee that actually interviews candidates and provides a questionnaire to candidates to answer, and whose recommendations are then forwarded to your central committee to take a vote. And all of those are fine, and any combination of those are fine. But just make sure that you know what your policy is, that you can explain it easily to Democratic candidates and offer it to every Democratic candidate who is running for local office in your county. And that's where the equitable comes in. You want to avoid the appearance that you are playing favorites. Even if you're not intending to play favorites, you need to make sure that no one on the outside can claim that you're playing favorites by making information available to some candidates and not to other Democratic candidates. And again, this is a political decision for you and the county, your county, to decide. The county that I know of that has that stays out of the endorsement process, it actually came to that decision because they realized that it was not the best. Formally endorsing a candidate was not the best political decision for their party. They are in a county that has, every race is 7 Democrats running against each other, and to put the county party in the middle of those races would divide, fragment, and alienate a great portion of their constituency. So they just don't do it. Now, you also need to be sensitive to the candidates' political realities. In Eastern Oregon, it's not necessarily going to boost a candidate's popularity if they're formally endorsed by the Democratic Party, and that's okay. You can still support them with direct voter contact and with all of the other tools. You just don't formally endorse them. Are there any questions about endorsement? Again, press 3 and I'll unmute you. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to me. I'm going to talk a little bit about election protection. Now, as well as being the staff lead for our local elections project, I'm also the staff lead for our statewide election protection program. And what that program is a legal team, first and foremost. We work with the Oregon Democratic Lawyers Council, which is a volunteer committee of Democratic lawyers who support election protection for our Democratic candidates in Oregon. And then there's me and Brad. And also, I should note the chair, at this point, Gene Atkins, and whoever is our incoming chair will be part of our election protection team. And also our local county coordinators and volunteer observers. They are the foot soldiers, and they are actually what makes this program work. We have, last fall, we had 25 counties with volunteer observer teams who went into their county elections office and observed the elections to make sure that they were free, fair, and that every vote counted that was eligible to be counted. Our goal is to ensure that every Democratic vote counts. We monitor the elections offices to make sure all ballots are being processed and counted according to Oregon law and regulations. We monitor the other observers and record disruptive behaviors. And we work with Democratic candidates so they understand how to make each of their votes count. And this gets into the specific election protection program relative to the May election. If you have a candidate whose race, the margin of the race is within 1%, you may assist your candidate's campaign by continuing to monitor ballot handling after the election day. Many of the ballots are still being hand processed following election day. These are called challenge ballots. These are ballots that were rejected by the optical scanner for any number of reasons. They may have like food stains or coffee stains on them that the scanner rejects. They may have been marked in a way that makes it difficult for the scanner to interpret voter intent. At any rate, those are hand processed, and you can witness that hand processing. And on the 8th day after Election Day, the DPO receives a list of voters from the Secretary of State whose ballots have been rejected because of missing or mismatched signatures. And we upload this list into VAN and create an activist code that is shared with all the candidate campaigns and their VAN accounts. So the number of these ballots can be enough to win or lose an election. The service we provide to our candidates in that instance is to help them determine if their campaign will benefit from contacting the voters with these missing and mismatched ballot envelope signatures. We can help a candidate create a targeted list of potential supporters with these challenge ballots, and we can help you craft the best message to use with these voters. There's usually 1 or 2 races per election cycle in which this is actually a viable strategy. And we had 2 elections in the fall of last year that we helped with ballot chases. One of them was Eddie Morales in the Gresham City Council, who won his election by going out and chasing ballots whose signature was missing or mismatched. And also in Independence, Shannon Core, who was a Democratic candidate for City Council, was able to preserve her thin lead from election night by going out and chasing the handful of ballots that were outstanding because hadn't been counted yet because of missing and mismatched signatures. So one of the things that told me is that this election protection facet of the election protection program is scalable. I mean, it's worthy of doing it whether you live in Independence and you're only talking about a handful of votes, or whether you live in Gresham when you're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of ballots to chase. I guess, I'm going to stop here. This is the end of our training tonight. This last slide is all of our contact information. I'm the primary contact for the local elections project, so please contact me if you have any questions. Brad's up there. Mario Parker Milligan, welcome back as our constituency organizer. Katie Drum, if you have questions about fundraising, whether it's for the local elections project or in general, so she's a great resource. Jonathan Rudolph is the tech director, and Molly Woon, our communications and deputy director. One last time, I'm going to ask if folks have any questions before we close. And again, press 3 to be unmuted. I see one. It's Cheryl Fisher in Clackamas. Cheryl, you're unmuted.
Yes, it's Jonathan there. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Clackamas has a very well-developed neighborhood leader program. The neighborhood leaders put all kinds of information about the Democrats in their neighborhood. Does that update into Van in any way?
Yes. This is Ron Morgan. I'll say yes, but with caveats. It's difficult to capture all of the information that neighborhood leaders may enter in the neighborhood leader service website. Their notes, sort of their observations. Information is very important to them, but it may not be important to us in the database. That data is preserved, however, in neighborhood leader services on the website. All of those contacts and notes and whatnot. So what we do is Steve Packer will go through and scrape like phone numbers and emails that have been collected and stuff that's really important, and then enter that into Van. But the canvassing notes, the stuff that has a friendly dog named Joe, that kind of stuff doesn't get stuck into Van.
Was there something in particular you were looking for?
No, I just wanted to know how they're interrelated and how they're integrated.
Now, Ron, if they use minivan, then it's more like it is in Van.
Yeah, well, yeah. If they use minivan and add a note, it'll go into Van.
Yeah,
and it will also, hopefully, from this point forward, end up in
migrate over
services.
Yeah.
We wanted our neighborhood leaders to migrate to minivan because it's much more efficient.
Yes.
And fantastic. Having to hand enter information is horrible. At the door, you just put in the input and it goes all the way to Van. So if we could have minivan where it would include our face-to-face contact information, we could have the entire neighborhood leading program using minivan.
Okay. Well, that's a good. Let's talk about that offline. I mean, in further discussions, we'd love to move as many folks as possible into minivan. We feel it's a much more efficient way. People are more likely to record their results if they don't have to go home and sit down at the computer to do it. So yeah, all right. Thank you, Cheryl.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And Bill Lammers, I see your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you now. You are live, Bill.
Thank you, Ron. I have one just real quick question and a more substantive one. When you talk about enhanced Van early in the presentation, I'm assuming you're talking about the bicameral section. section, is that correct?
No, actually, the My Voter section, these scores in particular, scores such as scores such as turnout, partisanship, the DNC, what is it? Not partisanship. The DNC score that measures basically the same thing as partisanship.
Right. Okay. So pretty much all the scoring is part of the enhanced van, is that correct?
Exactly. That's what the incumbents get, but challengers do not get that scoring. So they can see party registration, but they don't know. As far as navs, they can't separate the wheat from the chaff as well.
Right. So, and speaking to that question of what challengers have access to and what incumbents do, I know that questions about that have come up before. What is going to be the best forum for discussion about that?
Oh, you mean that policy?
Yes.
Probably through the SCC. Through possibly through the you could there are a variety of ways you could deal with it. You could create a resolution if you have a resolution process in the county party to address it, and through your SEC delegates, to advise us on a policy recommendation.
We do know we do know on the feedback forums gathered at the last SEC meeting during Gene and Brad's presentation about the van, people were very vocal about wanting to remove that policy.
Mm-hmm.
So the future of that is up in the air.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw the discussion about that at the December meetings.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Bill. I see. Let's see. I see. Cheryl, do you have another question? I'm going to unmute you again.
Question, but in answer to the person who asked the question about
Oh, yeah.
about the incumbents receiving advanced van versus the challengers not.
Yes.
County has a resolution that's been written, and it's going through the executive committee on February 5th. So we have a resolution, and if you're interested in finding our resolution, I could forward it to you, or my number is 503-659-1986, and just give me a call. I will forward you a copy of the resolution.
Just so everybody knows, this is Cheryl Fisher, who is the chair of the DPO Platform Resolutions Committee, correct?
No, I am not.
Oh, okay.
I am in class, and I just organize in Clackamas County and wherever I can.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Sorry, I was confusing you. Someone else. Huh. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Are there any more questions or comments?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Hi, Bill.
Yes. That was great that woman came on and said they're doing that resolution, but I wasn't able to catch the county and my phone. It got clipped off at the beginning. If I could get her name and what county she's from and maybe a contact.
Sure, I'll send that to you later. I'll send that to you tomorrow. Is that okay? It's Cheryl Fisher from Clackamas.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, thanks.
You bet. And I believe that's it. If there are no more questions or comments, this webinar is at an end. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, everyone.